This morning I'm going to talk about blessings. There's about 14 different words in the Bible that are all translated into blessings. So it can mean many different things. It doesn't necessarily always mean that you got a new boat. I'll tell you what the dictionary says about it. A special favor, a favor or gift bestowed by God, consecrated, sacred, holy, sanctified, divinely favored, fortunate, mercy bestowed by God, praise, devotion, to protect or guard from evil, to make happy, prosperity. Sometimes when we have trials, now trials are not blessings, but sometimes when we have trials we learn from them, and sometimes we gain things from them. About 50 years ago, my first wife, she left and she took my little baby girl with her. And of course I prayed that God would work things out, and He did not. And it was a blessing to me that He didn't give me what I was asking for. Because if He had to fix that, that woman would have made me miserable until the day she died. And as a result of Him not fixing that, I ended up with Linda. Now Linda is a blessing. I mean, Linda loves me, she takes care of me, and all kidding aside, I don't think anyone in the whole world eats better than I eat. I eat like a king. And it's not just nutritious food, it also tastes good. Back in '85, I was in Worldwide, so was this man. And he was a construction worker, and he was living from hand to mouth. He didn't have anything. He had a wife and kids. But I mean, he didn't accumulate anything. He didn't own anything. He was what we would call poor. And this man was up on a roof one day, and the owner of the house had sprayed the roof with silicone sealant, which you can't see, but it's slick as oil. So he was painting a two-story house. So he had climbed up the ladder, and he was on the first roof. He hadn't got to the second roof yet. He was painting in between the two roofs. And he slid off that roof, and he landed on concrete. And it broke him up so bad that he ended up being on crutches for a year. He was in a cast from his foot to his knee, and the doctor said, "This is so serious, you're not going to be able to get out of bed for 3 months." Of course, he did, but that's what the doctor said. So long story short, he's laying in bed. He comes back from the hospital. He had to go to the VA hospital because he didn't have any insurance. So he comes back, and he's in bed, and the assistant, remember this is '85, the assistant minister comes over to his house and walks in his bedroom where he's laying, and he said, "Mr. So-and-so," he said, "we've checked the records." And I didn't know Worldwide kept records. He said, "We have kept the records, and you have been a loyal tithe payer for 20 years. So we're going to take care of all of your bills. You don't have anything to worry about. I want you to make me a list, car, house, utilities, whatever. I'm going to come back tomorrow and get that list." And he said, "Headquarters is going to send you a check in the mail every month to take care of this." He said, "Boy, that's really nice." Well, the next day, the assistant minister came back, and he said, "I'm sorry, Mr. So-and-so. The minister called the church, called headquarters, and told them not to send you any money, that he was going to handle it himself on this end." Well, the way he handled it was to give that man $25 a week to feed a family of 5. And this guy that was hurt, he was blessed from what we call unconverted people. An Protestant man started paying his truck note. A Protestant woman started paying his house note. His wife went down and applied for food stamps, so the state of Texas was providing most of his food. So God blessed him with an income. Even though he was hurt, even though he's going through a trial, God blessed him with an income. But what the real blessing that the man got out of it was God blessed him with an education, because he had always worshiped the ministers, thought they were special, thought they were something different. He thought the ministers were more righteous than the people in the church. He had, he wasn't familiar with Ezekiel 34. He had never read that. And now, well, I don't know what was wrong with that minister. I don't know whether he was unconverted. I don't know whether he was maybe he was just mean or cruel or stingy. I don't know. But there was something wrong with his heart to make this man miserable. After a few months, the man got a big old bottle of pain pills and some crutches, and he went back to work, and he worked on one leg for a year. But you can ask Tim or any other construction worker, it's very hard to go up and down a ladder all day long with one leg. It really is. The other one's in a cast, and you can't put any pressure on it to take your good leg up because the pain is just too bad. It's just like the leg is just there, but you can't use it for anything at all. But anyway, the man that was hurt was very independent. Even as a child, he had done everything himself. If his bike broke, he fixed it. He didn't take it to daddy. Later on when he was a teenager, his clutch went out on his car. He put the car on blocks, took the transmission out, replaced the clutch, put the transmission back in, and off he goes. No one helped him do that, and he didn't ask for anyone's help. So he's always prided himself on being independent and being able to take care of everything. And all of a sudden, he realized now he was dependent upon God for everything. He couldn't do anything himself. So it humbled the man. And he also became more compassionate, and he had more sympathy for others. Because not only was he independent, but every job that he applied for, they hired him. So he just assumed if you weren't working, you were just lazy and didn't want to work. So it softened the man up quite a bit, even though most people wouldn't consider it a blessing. But the education that he got out of it was a blessing. I'm going to go to, you don't have to keep up with this if you don't want to. You're very familiar with all these scriptures, so it's going to be real easy. 1 Samuel 30. Acts 20:35, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Just a little bit about David. Sorry, I'm in the wrong book. Linda gave me a new Bible. It's big, it's too big. And I just got it, and all the pages stick together. Okay, 1 Samuel 31. Now this is about, again, when Saul was trying to kill David, or one of the times he was trying to kill David. Now it happened when David and his men came to Zalach. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but the I has to be short and the A has to be short, so Zalach, I guess. On the third day, and the Amalekites had invaded the south, and they had burned the town with fire, and had taken captive the women and those who were small and great. They didn't kill anyone, but carried them away. So David and his men came to the city, and there it was, burned with fire. Their wives, their sons, their daughters had been taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people were grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. You know, they spoke of stoning David because it's always somebody else's fault when something goes wrong. It's just like when I couldn't find my page just now. It wasn't my fault, it's Linda's fault for giving me a new Bible. It's human nature to blame other people when something goes wrong. It's somebody else's fault. So David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I pursue this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, pursue, for you shall surely overtake them and recover all. So David went, he and his 600 men who were with him, and they came to the brook Bezor. Now, I'm thinking this was really probably a river. I don't know, because 200 of the men were too tired and exhausted to cross it. So David goes on with the 400 men that he had left. And as they're traveling, they come across this Egyptian, which hasn't eaten anything or drinking anything for 3 days. So they start filling him full of sugar and carbohydrates. They want to perk him back up to get information out of him. They give him figs, they give him raisins, they give him bread and water. And as he's reviving and David's talking to him, David wants to know where these people are. And he says, well, you know, if you won't kill me and you won't turn me over to the people that I were with, because they'll kill me, I'll tell you where they are. Well, I'm assuming that David agreed to that because the man did take them to where the other people were. And when he had brought them down, there they were, spread out all over the land, eating and drinking and dancing because of all the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines and the Jews. Then David, land of Judah, then David attacked them from twilight until evening of the next day. Now here's a blessing. It doesn't say that. But these men were totally exhausted when they got there. And now they fought all night long and most of the next day. So God definitely blessed David and his men with extra strength that they would normally have. Or he blessed David by putting angels on that battlefield so that the tired soldiers of David would have an advantage. I don't know, maybe he did both. But there's definitely a blessing for you to be able to be that tired and exhausted and fight that long and still win the battle. 19, and nothing of theirs was lacking, but small or great sons or daughters, spoil, or anything which they had taken from them. David recovered all. Then they start going back to the brook where the other men are. Now David came to the 200 men who were so weary that they could not follow David, and that also made to stay with the brook. So they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were with him. And when David came near the people, he greeted them. Now I like the way God put this. Then all the wicked and worthless men of those who went with David answered and said, because they did not go with us, we will not give any of the spoil that we have recovered, except for every man his wife and children. Okay, you can have your wife and kids, but you can't have any of the goodies. But David said, my brethren, you shall not do so with what the Lord has given us, who has preserved us and delivered into our hand the troop that came against us. So David gave God the credit for everything, for winning the battle, for the stuff they took, all of it. For who will heed you in this matter? But as his part is who goes down to the battle, so shall his part who stays by the supplies. They shall share alike. Now, here's the point. So it was from that day forward, he made it a statute and an ordinance for Israel to this day. Right now, today, I don't care if you're in the Marine Corps or the Army, the Navy, everyone gets the same pay. Nobody gets any more pay than the other person. Now, you can get more pay by making rank. But say, for instance, there's 100 corporals or 100 sergeants. One of them is a truck mechanic. One of them's a cook. One of them is a doctor. One of them works in the office doing paperwork. All those men get the same pay. when you're looking at a battle take place, when you look out there and you see everything that's going on in that battle, for every single person you see on that battlefield, there are 10 in support. We still do the exact same thing. Everybody gets paid the same, and everybody supports everybody else. It's just like when someone in the church is in battle, or someone in the church is hurt or having trouble, having problems, going through trials. We're supposed to support that person. So then David goes on. Now when David came back home, he sent the spoil to the elders of Judah, to his friends, saying, "Here is a present for you from the spoil of the enemies of the Lord." And then from 20 to 31, it names over 15 different towns that David gave food to. Now, I don't know, he took his men and, okay, there's 10 sheep, 10 goats, 10 cows. You take that to Hebron. He does the same thing over here. He does that 15 times. He blessed hundreds of people with free food. Now, I don't know who said this, so I can't give credit to who credit's due. But I read it the other day. It said, when we receive his blessings, he blesses us again when we pass our blessings on to others. That's what David did. He passed his blessings on to other people. Now, you're thinking right now probably, well, how can I bless other people? I don't have anything. I don't have thousands of goats, thousands of sheep, thousands of cows. I'm living from hand to mouth. Well, you can be their friend. You can bless them with your friendship. Proverbs 17, a friend loves at all times. Proverbs 18, a man who has friends must himself be friendly. That's not the kind of friend I'm getting ready to talk about. That's an acquaintance. You have lots of people that you call friends you're acquainted with. I'll read the rest of the scripture. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. That's the kind of friend that I'm talking about, or I'm getting ready to talk about. If you're that kind of friend to someone, you are a blessing to that person. Now, when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David. That's when they first met, as far as I know, and they got along perfectly. I'm going to go to 1 Samuel 20. This is when, again, Saul was trying to kill David. Verse 20, 32. And Jonathan answered Saul his father and said to him, "Why should he be killed? What has he done?" Then Saul cast a spear at him to kill him, by which Jonathan knew that it was determined by his father to kill David. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger. Now, the reason Jonathan was in fierce anger wasn't because his dad just tried to kill him. He was in fierce anger because his father wanted to kill David. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had treated him shamefully. Then the next few verses are the little system that Jonathan and David came up with about shooting the arrows and where they land and how they land, whether he was to be safe or whether he was to disappear. And as soon as the lad, 41, as soon as the lad had gone, David arose from a place toward the south and fell on his face to the ground and bowed down 3 times. And they kissed one another, and they wept together, but David more so. Then Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of the law, saying, 'Thank you so much.'" Excuse me. May the Lord be between you and me, between your descendants and my descendants forever. So he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. David and Jonathan protected each other. David and Jonathan protected each other. They prayed together. They cried together. They loved each other. That was the brother. That's the kind of love that you have that's deeper than love for your kin. It's not what you would call an easy friendship. You might only have one or two of those kind of friends your entire life. I've been very fortunate to have two. One I was with had a friend for 20 years, and he left the church. The other man that I was friends with in that same way, he died a couple of years ago. But it's different because if you're going to have that kind of friend, you have to open up. You have to share information. And I don't care if it's woman, or man, or man and woman. You know everything about that person. You know about their sins. You know about their past sins. You know about their weaknesses. You know their likes, their dislikes. They tell each other things that they would never tell anyone else. They tell each other things that they wouldn't even tell their mate. And the reason those friendships last 20 or 30 years or until someone dies is because both of those people know how to keep their mouths shut. Both of those people know that whatever's said between them never goes any further than that. I'm going to go to 2 Samuel 9. Not far away. I thought. Now, if you remember, David and Jonathan swore to each other before God that they would take care of each other's relatives. And later on in verse 9, David said, "Is there still anyone left in the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" Excuse me. They said, "There is still a son of Jonathan who is lame in his feet." Verse 6. So David says, "Okay, go get him and bring him here to me." Now in verse 6, now when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, had come to David, he fell on his face and prostrated himself. Of course, he was afraid. He was frightened. Then David said, "Mephibosheth?" And he answered, "Here is your servant." So David said to him, "Do not fear, for I will surely show you kindness for Jonathan your father's sake." This is why this man is being blessed. He is blessed because of his father. He's blessed because of what his father did. "And will restore to you all the land of Saul your grandfather." So here, he's laying on the floor. He's only been there a couple of minutes, and now he's a rich man. "And you shall eat bread at my table continuously." And then if you read on from 9 and 10, you'll see that David also gave him 35 people, 35 servants to work the land. Now, those 35 servants can eat as much as they want off that land if they grow. But anything left that's sold, the profit, that all that money goes to Mephibosheth. He gets everything. So he ended up wealthy because of what his father did, because his father was friends with David, and David keeps his word. Another way you can bless someone, it's a lot easier than being their friend. You can give that person your time. John 15:13, "Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends." Your time is your life. When you drive over there and you pick that person up because they can't drive or don't have transportation, when you pick that person up and you take them to the doctor and you spend a half a day or all day with that person and then take them home, they're blessed. And you're blessed for doing it. Your time is your life. When you give your time away, you're giving that person a day of your life. So it doesn't have to be something big. There are a lot of little things that we can do to bless people. Now, what brought this all about, what brought this on, what gave me these thoughts was a church that I've been going to for a month or two. I was buying hay from this man, and he wouldn't sell it on Saturday, so we asked questions, and sure enough, he kept the Sabbath. And then he found out that we did. So he invited us to his church, a Sabbath-keeping church. And so we went because instead of driving 3 hours to Katy or driving 3 hours here, it's right by our house and it's comfortable. And the people are very nice. It's very sociable, very pleasant environment to be in. But as we were there week after week, we started picking up things that weren't quite right. We thought that they were pretty much in line with us doctrinal-wise, and we found out they were not. But we're sitting there one week, and they said, okay, we're going to have Passover right now. And really? Yeah, we're going to have Passover. So all the women went into one room, and all the men went into the other room, and the minister's on the floor. He's washing someone's feet, and I'm standing there watching, and he says, you want to take Passover with us? And I said, no. I said, I'm not going to do that. I said, I've already taken Passover. And he said, well, you can do it again. And I said, well, Leviticus 23:5 says on the 14th day of the first month at twilight. So the Bible tells me what day to take it and what time to take it. And he said, oh, we do this 4 times a year. I said, what days? And he said, oh, no particular day. We just asked around, and when it's convenient for everybody in the church, that's the day we do it. So, okay, so I kind of let that go, I thought, well, I've got a lot of work to do here, but you got to work a little bit at a time. You can't just push it in someone's face, especially when they've been raised like this and taught this their entire life. So anyway, a couple of weeks later, Linda kept asking questions because she was trying to figure out because they spent so much time talking about missionary work, trying to get these people converted before they're lost. And she was trying to find out if there was any room for people that had never heard the name of Jesus, for people that were raised in Africa, 15, 16, 1700s. They're too busy fighting each other or eating each other or whatever. They never heard the name Jesus. And what about the millions of others, like the Muslims that were raised Muslims, And so anyway, they said, we have a DVD from headquarters, which is going to explain the millennium perfectly. You'll understand, it'll explain everything about it. Great. So we went next week, and they started playing that DVD. It almost made me sick to my stomach. I could not believe it. Without a doubt, it was the worst sermon I'd ever heard since I'd been in the church. I'd never heard anything like that. First of all, the first thing that caught me was Jesus will never set foot on this earth, ever. When Jesus returns, he'll hover over the earth, but he will not touch it. He'll resurrect these people, and then they'll go back to heaven. And that's it. There's nobody. He said the only people, and I don't know how he came to this. I know the preacher was given certain scriptures, but I was so stunned by what I was hearing, I wasn't paying that much attention. He said there will be no people on earth during the 1,000-year millennium. Not one person. Nothing will be on this earth but Satan, the devil, and his demons for 1,000 years. And then I knew we were way off base. And then he keeps going, he keeps preaching, and he says, now when you get to heaven, you probably look around and you'll notice that Grandma isn't there. And when you notice that Grandma isn't there, you're going to go to Jesus or God and you're going to ask, where's Grandma? And in Revelation 20:12, it says, and the books were opened and you were judged by what these books said. Well, here's their take on that. When you ask when you ask that man, Jesus where Grandma is, Jesus is going to give you the books. And he's going to say, you read these. And as you're reading these, you're going to see that Grandma wasn't as nice as you thought she was. Grandma's gone. You can forget about Grandma. So I was thinking, wow. I did get a couple of scriptures, and I know they've been read before. This is what happens when you preach down the line. Everyone else has already used your scriptures. I'm going to go ahead and read a couple anyway. Revelation 26. Blessed and holy is the one who has part in the first resurrection. Over these the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ and will reign with him for 1,000 years. Revelation 5. And have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth. Matthew 5. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Revelation 2:26. And he who overcomes and keeps my works until the end, to him I will give power over the nations. How can you ignore scriptures like this and say no one will be here during the millennium? David Antheon said, we can get along without miracles. We cannot get along without the truth. I mean, how can you read stuff like this? How can you read Ezekiel 37? The dry bones. And then they come together, and then the muscle, and then the skin covers them. And then in 10, the breath comes into them, and they stood upon their feet. And 11, these bones are the whole house of Israel. 12, thus says the Lord God, behold, O my people, I will open your graves and bring you into the land of Israel. How can they possibly ignore those kind of scriptures and think no one will ever be on earth during the millennium? Brethren, it made me realize and see and understand that we are the most blessed people in the world. There are no other people anywhere in the world that are more blessed than we are. We are so blessed to know the plan of salvation. I don't have to worry about my 2 unconverted daughters. And you don't have to worry about Grandma or anybody else. That is a fantastic blessing to know the plan of salvation. The man has $50 billion. You're more blessed than he is. I don't care if you're living in a cardboard box. You are more blessed than the man that has the $50 billion. We've been blessed with grace. We've been blessed with mercy, with God's Holy Spirit, with forgiveness, with eternal life, with God and Jesus. There is no one more blessed than we are. Linda and I have had a real hard year, and some of you might have had. Our trials do not go away when we get old. They're different. We have different trials than we had when we were middle-aged. We have different trials than when we were young, but we're still going to have trials. So the next time you're fed up, you're sad, you're depressed, or you're tired, you're stressed, you're worrying about something, you're spiritually or mentally lethargic, I want you to consider or meditate on your blessings. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings. See what God has done.